Imagine yourself on a plane with your friends, a short trip, barely 3 hours. You're laughing, singing, talking about the rugby match you're about to play. And then, within minutes, everything turns into screams, blood, and endless snow. This isn't a Hollywood movie. This is a true story that happened in 1972, still remembered today as the miracle of the Andes. On board were 45 people, most of them a young rugby team from Uruguay, along with friends and family. The plane was small, a military charter, never designed for the brutal heights of the Andes. On October 13th, the pilot tried to take a shortcut, but thick clouds and navigational confusion made them believe they had already crossed the mountains. In reality, they were right in the middle of them. Suddenly, the wing clipped the side of a peak and the plane shattered apart like a toy made of paper. 12 people died instantly. The rest opened their eyes to a white hell, endless snow, the bodies of their friends scattered around them, and the broken wreckage of the plane that would now be their only shelter. Imagine the shock, waking up at 12,000 feet with no food, no way to communicate, and no hope of rescue. During the first days, they survived on scraps, pieces of chocolate, bottles of wine, and leftovers from the flight. They divided a single piece as if it were a full meal. But soon, everything was gone. The wind cut through them like knives, and the blinding sun reflecting off the snow burned their eyes. After 10 days, they heard something through a small radio salvaged from the plane, words that shattered their hearts. The search has been called off. No survivors expected. In that moment, their spirits broke. They cried until there was no tears left. But the real struggle began now. A struggle against the hunger that was devouring their bodies, and the freezing cold that pierced their bones, until death drew closer with every passing hour. They were forced to try anything they could possibly eat. They chewed on torn leather and even the cotton stuffed inside the plane's seats, but their bodies rejected it. And in the end, they found themselves facing the hardest decision of their lives, turning to the corpses of their dead friends and relatives. At first, it was shocking, an impossible moment, but they told themselves, if we don't do this, we will all die. Some hesitated, others refused entirely, but the deadly hunger changed everything. It strangled their humanity, clouded their minds, and pushed them to begin with the first body. And so, they started cutting flesh from the bodies of their former companions, the very same who had shared laughter and joy with them just days before. They left the meat to dry under the sun, then ate it, tears filling their eyes, as if the agony of the crash and death itself had not been enough. A few weeks later, a deadly avalanche struck them in the night while they slept, burying them under the snow and taking 8 more lives. Out of 45 passengers, only 19 remained. Every night they went to sleep not knowing if they would open their eyes the next morning. Amid this living hell, certain figures rose to lead the group. Nando Parado, a 21-year-old who had lost his mother and sister in the crash, did not collapse as others expected. Instead, he became a symbol of hope. Beside him was his friend Roberto Canessa, a medical student, who did his best with his modest knowledge to treat the wounded and ease their suffering. After nearly 2 months, 3 of them made a fateful decision: Nando Parado, Roberto Canessa, and Antonio Vizintin. They chose to embark on what seemed like madness, crossing the Andes Mountains on foot in search of help. They knew it was a journey toward death, but there was no other choice left. They endured 10 days of hell, endless snow, treacherous mountains, freezing winds, hunger gnawing at their bodies. They climbed steep slopes without equipment, slept on bare rocks, and huddled together just to stay warm. Antonio couldn't go on. He broke down after a few days and had to turn back, while Nando and Roberto pressed forward in their desperate search for rescue. And on the 10th day, the miracle happened. They saw a shepherd crossing a valley with his flock. They screamed from the depths of their souls, waving pieces of cloth to catch his eye. And when he finally spotted them, he rushed to help. He gave them food to regain their strength, then alerted the authorities. From that moment, the rescue began. On December 23, 1972, after 72 days of pure hell, rescue teams finally arrived. They found the survivors alive, but looking like ghosts. Sunken eyes, emaciated bodies, faces worn out by a long struggle with death. They were airlifted one by one to the military hospital in San Fernando, Chile. There, they were given IV fluids and small portions of liquid food. Their wounds and fractures were treated, and they were wrapped in blankets to warm their frozen bodies. More than anything, they needed psychological care before physical treatment, because what they had lived through was beyond any wound. Out of 45 passengers, only 16 survived. Some were swallowed by the snow. Others became food for their companions. The story shocked the entire world. Headlines screamed about them and about cannibalism. Some condemned them, saying, "This is unforgivable." But most people said, in such conditions, what other choice did they have? Today, the survivors tell their story as proof of the power of human will. Nando Parrado himself said, "I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who decided not to die." Over the years, this tragedy turned into books and films and even scientific studies on psychological resilience. It became a symbol that human beings can survive even in the harshest conditions, as long as they hold on to hope. Even if the price is decisions beyond imagination. And now, more than 50 years later, some of the bodies are still buried in the Andes, the mountain that holds secrets of suffering on one side and heroism on the other. Like a rugby field, but not like any match. The opponent wasn't another team. The opponent was fate itself, undefeated. And the question remains, if you were in their place, trapped in snow and hunger, would you do what they did? Or would you surrender?